4th, 2004. This is an interview with Mr. R. Don Comstock, Jr., born September 28th, 1921. Interviewer is Robert Gardner. Interview is conducted at the Atlanta History Center. Mr. Comstock, can you tell me what war and branch of service you served in?
Yes, Bob. World War II, in the Navy, with the 7th Fleet out in the Pacific.
Were you drafted or did you enlist, sir?
I enlisted. It was the V7 program that the Navy had, which was really so great. And that, maybe you know, that signed up guys who were interested in college who were seniors. They wanted college graduates to go to midshipman schools. So in September of '42, signed up with that V7 program. You know, if you qualify academically and physically, why, they'll take you. But it's a great program. You get to graduate, and then we went to midshipman school at Columbia University in New York. 4 months, 4-month wonders, and then went overseas. So that's how I got started. And, I went across on, I remember that ship too, the Sea Devil. We went across from San Francisco with 5,000, you know, Army and Navy, everybody going over there. Went into Townsville, Australia. Went down via Brisbane. I went to my ship, the Pollux, the USS Pollux, AKS-4, at Milne Bay, New Guinea. And that's how I got started. You asked, got it. So what next?
Do you remember arriving and what it was like when you got there, sir?
Well, yes. I mean, we went into Townsville and we were going to Brisbane, a group of us, and we got on the train, which we call the Toonerville Trolley. It took 2 or 3 days to go a few hundred miles. But no, there was just nothing going on. I mean, we just were traveling, that's all. And there, you know, I got on the ship, went to Milne Bay, and got on the Pollux.
What was your job or assignment on the Pollux, sir?
Well, I went aboard as first as the deck officer, Division 1. You know, we handled all the equipment and stuff you brought aboard for service. One interesting little thing there, when I came across the country, my baggage was lost. That's en route from San Francisco. And I had to get new uniforms there. And the ones they had issued to me before were new. They were gray uniforms, which all the new officers were getting gray uniforms. Well, I got khaki in San Francisco, and when I arrived on the Pollux, the chief told me later that he thought I had some experience because I was wearing khaki uniforms, not gray. So I got some respect I didn't deserve at that particular time. And so, of course, on the Pollux, you know, I went through the routine. I was as a deck officer, then the assistant gunnery officer, assistant navigator, became the navigator. And if you want a good story, that when I was a navigator, the one that it really lasted with me, even today, it really helped me with everything I ever did. We were in Samar in the Philippines. And to back up one bit, we used to start loading up in Sydney, Australia, then Brisbane, and then up to Milne Bay. And then we were now up to Samar, because this was toward the end of the war. And we had orders to go to Manila to pick up our prisoners of war who were being freed from the Japanese prisons. Santa Tomas and Liberated were the name of the prisons, I remember. And so yeah, I was navigating. We had the orders one late afternoon to go to Manila immediately. So we had to go through the San Bernardino Straits to do that, which had a 19 current going into the Pacific. The Navy didn't want their ships going in there, but we couldn't make it. We went 19 knots, and by radar only, through all those dozens and dozens of islands, you know, all night long, and we made it. And I learned that particular time that if you put your mind to something and do what you're supposed to do, you can do anything. Well, you know what that means. A lot of confidence. So I guess that I should mention what the Pollux was. The Navy designed and built this ship and took a design from the Likes line and put it into a ship that was designed to service the fleet directly. And we had 5 holds that were 480 feet long. We could go 19 knots as opposed to the other ships like that couldn't go that fast. We were well armed because we went alone. We had 5-inch gun on the fantail, 3-inch 50s, forward, aft, 20 millimeters, mine throw. We had it all because we went alone, directly to the fleet. And the ship was just terrific, that's all. And let's see, where was I? I finished the story going to Manila. And that was the biggest event we had. We went all over those islands serving, and always just short of the battle, as you know, because we couldn't do our work while the battle was going on. But you could see what was going on a lot of times. And now jump way ahead to another, you like interesting little thoughts. Well, we came back to the States after the war. And as we came to California, and there's the Golden Gate Bridge that we were going under, and we look up and there's this big sign, "Welcome home, well done." You know, made your tears come to your eyes. Anyway, what else? You know, I guess I'm talking too much now.
What was the main purpose for the Pollux, sir?
To service the fleet, our holds, we had everything from toilet paper to the finest instruments. We had one refrigerated hold, designed specifically to service the fleet with their immediate needs, so they wouldn't have to go into a port to get them. And that was the purpose.
Did your ship come in under any fire, sir?
Well, occasionally with Japanese airplanes. We had a couple of submarine scares, but nothing that really was much import.
Were there many casualties in your unit, sir?
No.
Can you tell me about a couple of your memorable experiences that did happen while you were on board ship?
Well, I just got through with one about that trip to the Philippine Islands. And we all felt so good about that. There was another little interesting, humorous thing, though, at that same trip, when we were going into the San Bernardino Straights. And I was watching carefully because of that powerful current. And we thought we might be going aground. And I ran in there to the helmsman and I said, "Left 30 degrees rudder." He looked at me like I was crazy, you know. I said, "Port, left, 30 degrees rudder." I grabbed the thing and started pulling to keep us from going aground. And so we made it. So at the first reunion I went to, at the hospitality room with all the guys out there, so when I arrived and came in, I hopped up and said, "There he is." He told that story about it. Grabbed the wheel away from him. I know that was a little humor, but
So you
Well, I
actually,
don't have any big combat stories to tell you, no, fortunately.
so you actually could see the ground coming up under the ship in the water.
We were being shoved toward the beach, yeah. Mhm. But we made it.
How did you stay in touch with your family, sir?
Well, of course, at that time I wasn't married, but you'd write letters that were censored. You didn't say anything about what you were doing or where you were going. So it was nice when it was all over, you could tell them.
What was the food like?
Oh, the food was excellent aboard a Navy ship. We had our own chef and everything. Even all my enlisted friends, they said they had real good food too. That's one thing we try to do.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yes, because we were a supply ship, right? You can see that's another good point.
There's just sometimes the supply ship gives up their things for the combat crew, so it sometimes kind of cuts them a little short. Did that ever happen with your ship?
No, we didn't have to give it up. We had enough.
Did you feel any pressure or stress, sir?
Well, at times, that's one of those things that we were mostly not involved in the type of thing you're talking about. So we had pressure from a lot of things, yeah, like I told, and down to fire, engine room, to get things like that. We take care of them and we'll keep moving.
What about when you were transferring supplies from your ship to the other ships? Were there any unusual events that happened, sir?
No, because everything was quiet then. When they sent the whale boats over, their working crew with their requisition, and we just went through the holds, got what they needed, and went back. No, nothing unusual.
So this wasn't a ship-to-ship transfer, it was a ship to a smaller boat to take the supplies back.
Yeah. Well, mhm.
Was there anything special you did for good luck, sir?
No. I don't remember anything like that. Oh, we just prayed, you give some prayers, yes.
How did people entertain themselves?
Well, when you're aboard ship, what you weren't worried about and didn't think about entertainment. At that time was when when you were loading up and so forth. And when we would give some, free time to the crew. In a couple of places we had some interesting things happen, which was actually portrayed in the play on Broadway, Mr. Roberts, which my wife and I saw together after the war, we went up there. She thought it was so appropriate because same thing happened to us. It showed a lot of the crew having to put them in big, the bags to take the equipment aboard the ship, loaded them with men and brought them aboard. So that was some of the entertainment that was involved.
Were there any entertainers like USO or any kind of shows like that
No,
you
we never
got a chance to go
were
through?
near any of those things.
What did you do when you were on leave?
Well, there was no leave during that 2.5 years. We were aboard that ship, we did the job. And so,
Were you able to
the
do
leave was when we went to a port and the guys had a few drinks.
What did you do? Was there any travel involved when you were in port? Any places you got to go or things you got to see?
Nothing that wasn't right there available.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Well, I guess some of those things I mentioned. I guess I don't have all those things written down, so I don't think of them right at the moment. But there's one thing that I would like to point out that when we went, that my lasting friends, and they all actually were enlisted, you know, the crew, all the reunion and everything else. All of my real friends were in the enlisted men. I talked to them, still talk to them. Because they were such a big help, you know how they were to make things possible.
Was there anything unusual that you had happen in record keeping? I know the military likes to keep records of everything.
Well, I had some good records that I had kept while I was navigator of star sights and all of the currents, and everywhere we went, we had to watch that. Which I'm sorry, when I left the ship, I thought it was in my baggage. I was sure it was. Got home, it wasn't. So when I contacted the new navigator, and no, he never saw it. So I don't know what happened to it. So personal records, well, that was really what I had. I do have some copies of logs. I went when I was in Washington recently. Some copies of just the regular log, and just as you said, you might like it just to see a little sample of it, but you can't read it, I'm sure. But this brings up one little humorous story that you know, we got a lot of these logs that were made while we were underway, and the skipper, Mark Kircher, I remember him well, complained for the officers of the deck that when we were going just straight through somewhere without anything happening, would write steaming as before and sign it, that's it. All that, but he wanted a little more. He said, I think if you write some more on that log, what's happening? So I felt a little humorous, I guess, and I wrote him one. The next time I was also on the deck. This was new as an incident about at night how the moon would shine on the flying fish that were jumping up, and the beautiful, scenery that we could see after, some pretty good prose, I think, about it. Then I never heard from him again about it. He never said another word.
Was that the only time that you embellished a bit on your information that you were putting in the log for it?
The only thing
Was that the only time, or after that, did you continue that type of a report, or did you just start back with the steaming as before?
They did add a few sentences later, I think. Nothing. It remained the same. Mm-hmm. Really, basically, yes. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the reunions. But there's well, let me show you a picture of the pilots. And let's see. I have a nice slick picture of it, but USS Pollux, the AKS-4.
How long did you say that ship was, sir?
475 feet long.
Wow.
About 1.5 football fields. And can you imagine that going 19 knots? We didn't go that way all the time, of course. We usually average was about 16 when we go.
So that took a little bit of time to make a turn or come to a stop then.
At our, this is a little picture of at our reunion, and well, you can't really see this just too much, but this was one where we all got up and talked, at the reunion, and stories and talk to everyone, you know. That, I wish I had more things to show, but I didn't get all into all my files before I got here today. We got a whole get of the Pollock's reunion group every year that had 5 of them. And well, I should have had this when I told you my story about going through the Philippine Islands to get the, I did tell you that one, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Released prisoners at the time from the Japanese prisoners. If there's a picture of the Philippine Islands and the San Bernardino Straights right here. The famous San Bernardino Straights. So,
when you picked up the prisoners,
the ones who could walk, we picked up, yeah.
Yes, sir. How did that affect you emotionally when you saw these men?
Well, it did affect us, no question about that. And you're talking to them what they had gone through, and it was quite emotional, yeah.
Where did you take them to?
Well, we took them to right up the way to Luzon, and then we took them back to the, down to Samar. They got aboard other ships and went back home.
Do you remember approximately how many you picked up and brought back?
Oh yeah, about 120. And one of them we could carry. Yeah.
What did you think of your fellow officers and fellow seamen, sir?
Oh, I thought highly of them. Yes, they were great to work with. And some, were better than others. Oh yeah, but this is a great crew. And I remember one of them, a signalman who worked with me a lot, particularly with the star signals, when we were navigating by the stars, Bob Dorman up in Indiana. And we had a great camaraderie, in doing all of that. And my yeoman, when I became executive officer, Liberty Hannah, who lived in Oregon, and Gordon Norman, Chief Norman, he was a chief supply on the ship, who was, I got to know him in New Orleans after the war. Know him, I mean really know him, because he lived there, and I got a job over there after the war. And there was a letter that he wrote to me later on, which meant an awful lot to me. And I guess since you asked for this type of thing, I would pray that this is from Casper Norman. He is really the principal supply chief aboard the Pollocks. Helped a lot of the men in their discussions and in the depressions or stress they had. And he wrote to tell me that I know the Supreme Command would one day come to the realization of your great contribution to the execution of the World War II. They have seen fit and appropriate to dedicate and name one of the recently launched combat vessels that built there in Biloxi, Mississippi area, and for the effective sacrifice displayed by you as you needed and proceeded to execute with distinction the various and sundry missions to which you were assigned. In every case, you have acquitted yourself with honor and exemplary courage, and so on, And by that, they have named this ship the USS Comstock, and, in honor of what you have done. And I wrote him and told him, well, why do you say this? And the reason is because you guys were so good. That's why I was able to succeed.
Did you keep a personal diary, sir?
No, not just notes. No.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Well, it was in the summer of 46. I guess I got home in May of 46.
Where were you at the time, sir?
Well, Pensacola, Florida.
Was that where your ship was at then, sir?
No, we came into San Francisco. And we from there en route and went to Pensacola.
What
And I had a great train 3 days, from the West Coast.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterwards?
Well, I visited my friends and so forth, and decided to go to New Orleans and look for a job after it was all over. I left it. I didn't stay in the service. When the war was over, my time was finished.
Did you make any close friendships while in the service, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Do you continue any of those relationships?
Is it, when you say one, of course, one was, I had two from Ole Miss, got in the V7 program the same as I did. That was J.W. King and V.A. Liberto, who lived in Laurel, Mississippi, both of them. And J.W., we called him Judy. He went to Notre Dame. And I went to Columbia, but we ended up going on to overseas together. He was assigned to ammunition ship. I got to Pollock, so I had better. I was luckier than he was. But he's been a close friend ever since. Both of them have been my dearest friends. Yeah.
Did you join a veterans organization, sir?
No.
What did you go on to do as a career after the war, sir?
Well, I went to work with Capitol Records out of New Orleans as a salesman. Became the manager and went to Charlotte, went to Atlanta finally as the Southern Vice President for Capitol Records. And lived in Atlanta. And 5 years later I was fortunate to get the CBS distributorship, Columbia Records, Columbia Phonographs and all of that, which I had for 25 years with a couple other companies, tape company, and remember 8-track tapes?
Oh, yes.
We started making 8-track tapes when they first came out. And then it gradually came on up. And, so that type of, and I went into real estate after. The distribution picture changed and they didn't use distributors anymore. They drop shipped to the big accounts.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general, sir?
Did that help me, you say, in business? Yes. In learning the things I learned, how to handle things, yes.
How did it influence your thinking about war or about being in the military?
Well, because there's been a lot of talk today about Vietnam and Iraq and so forth. And because those two wars, is so completely different. Vietnam, we think, was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made, And the World War II, the patriotism then was real and genuine. And it just, because it's so different. We were attacked, unmercifully by, all of that. I don't have to go into that. But the difference today, because of Vietnam, well, the Korean War, we got lost in the shuffle somewhere, but it's not, it wasn't bad like Vietnam. And Iraq was done without proper planning, obviously. Everybody can agree on that, I think. And so we, of course, definitely are against that type of war. People like us.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, as I mentioned before, it helped me a lot. Particularly that one experience of successfully going through the Philippines at night. Yeah, it's been very helpful.
Is there anything you'd like to add to this interview that we haven't covered, sir?
Oh, probably so when I got through, but I didn't realize we'd get into all of this, as a matter of fact. But it is a wonderful thing that you're doing, you know, to set this up and to have a record of stories from World War II. I think it's terrific. And, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, on behalf of the Veterans History Project, the Atlanta History Center, and my personal thanks, I want to tell you I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview with us. It's been my pleasure to interview you, sir. Thank you so much for everything that you did and your people of your generation did. I hate to think what we would be facing right now if you hadn't been there and hadn't done the sacrifices and things that you did. I personally really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.